Hello, this is Mike Wade, Chief Options Strategist with Tom Gentile, and welcome to this video featuring Tom's tools and yours truly. Stock and options trading has large potential rewards, but also large potential risks. You must be aware of these risks and be willing to accept them in order to invest in the stock and options market. Don't trade money you cannot afford to lose. This is neither an offer to buy or sell or recommend a particular stock or option. I'm not giving any advice whatsoever. Please don't construe anything in this video as advice. And all prices are in US dollars unless noted otherwise. Read the balance of the disclaimer if you so choose by pausing the recording. In my last video on iron condors, I talked about being able to make money within a range by putting on an iron condor. So we have the idea of a profit zone, and as long as the stock stays within the profit zone, we make money. This trade is called an iron condor. All right, so those are really high probability trades, but I wanted to sort of sweeten the deal a little bit and talk to you about one-day iron condors that we'll use around earnings announcements. So in this video, we're going to be talking about high probability trading with one-day iron condors around earnings. And to do that, I'm going to show you two tools, the earnings effects ranker and the condor finder that we looked at in the last video. The three things specifically we're going to cover is I want to show you how to find ideal one-day iron condor stocks. So which stocks does it work the best on? Step two is to find great one-day iron condors using the condor finder. I'm going to show you how to tweak it a bit so you can get just the one-day iron condors. And then we'll wrap it up by talking about entering and exiting. All right, so let's talk about one of my favorite patterns, and this is the implied volatility pattern. And you'll notice here that we have these red spikes in implied volatility. You know what that is? That's when demand increases for options, and therefore the implied volatility or expense of the options also increases. You can see here that and this happens a lot into an earnings announcement. So these green triangles here are earnings announcements. So you can see the IV rushing into earnings there and then rushing into earnings here. And then notice what happens each and every time right after these earnings announcements is that the implied volatility tanks and crushes. We call that IV crush, in fact, and that is a very consistent pattern. So the idea is, how can we make money on this imminent IV crush in just a day? We want to be able to sell that implied volatility there, sell it there. We'll do that the day before the earnings announcement, and then we want to profit when those expensive options become cheap the very next day. And our strategy of choice to do that is going to be the wonderful iron condor. So step one is to find the biggest IV crush stocks. We're going to be using the earnings effects ranker to do that. So let's hop into the tools and go find some great IV crush stocks. So the first thing we need to decide is what index we're going to search against, and the S&P 500 for me is one of the better ones because that's where the top 500 optionable stocks are in the stock market, and they therefore have a lot of liquidity. So that means we have better bid-ask spreads, better slippage. So we're going to use the S&P 500 optionable. The next thing we want to do is find the best IV change over the last 4 earnings periods. All right, so this is going to find the biggest IV crush stocks. The next step is to click straddles 1 to 7 days to future earnings. We're not going to look for straddles, but we are going to look for stocks that have earnings in the upcoming 7 days, because those are the stocks I want to go after. Notice also up here, I forgot to mention this, that we're back tested to 7:15. The next step is you hit the search button. And then when the search comes back, when the search completes, you'll see a list of stocks that have the biggest IV crush over the last 4 earnings periods. You can see here eBay on the top of the list has an average IV crush of 56.88%. That means I can sell options that the next day will be almost 57% cheaper. That's my opportunity. You can also see the last 4 earnings periods and how much the IV crushed. So this is going to be your hit list over the upcoming month or so. And these earnings dates here are what we're going to use to put on our radar. So on 7/17, all 4 of these here would be good candidates for one-day iron condors. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to go out and find a one-day iron condor on the top of the list here, eBay, the biggest IV crush of the bunch. And we're going to go after it on 7/17, which is the date of the earnings announcement. And that brings us to step 2, and that's to find the one-day iron condor. We're going to be using the condor finder. Let's go back into the tools and do it. The condor finder is under searchers, single strategy, and condor. Now remember, we're back tested to 7:15 and earnings is on 7/17. So let's change the date to 7/17. And then I want to type in my stock, eBay. So eBay is the stock I want to find the one-day Iron Condor on, and I'm doing so on the earnings date. You can see that right there, the 17th. So I'm back-tested. I moved my back-test date up. And then the next step is to click At the Money Iron Condors. Now this scanner is not set for one-day Iron Condors, so the next thing we have to do is go into Wizard Criteria, click Show, and there's a lot here, and ignore all of it except for days to expiration. All right, with days to expiration, your minimum will be 1 day. All right, so I'm very happy to use options that expire the very next day, and I don't want to go any further than 45. So the only thing that I've changed here is days to expiration to minimum. Once you've done that, you click the search button, and Condor Finder will go out and find some one-day Iron Condors on eBay. And notice, these are pretty amazing Iron Condors. The probability between the break-evens is noted. All right, you can see that there. And then, of course, we have all the standard information. We've got the stock close, the strikes, and we have a credit spread up top and a credit spread down below, the expiration date, the days to expiration. All of these options expire in 2 days. That's fine. That'll work great. And I have my maximum profit over loss. That's the return on investment that you can get on these Iron Condors. So the first one has a 100% probability of making 24%. All right, so that's statistical probability. That means based on stock price movement, you have a 100% chance of making money on this stock, and to the tune of 24%. Now, notice here, I saw this one. It shows a return on investment or max profit over max loss of 42% at 99.4% probability. I would rather make 42% than 24%, and the probability is almost 100. For all intents and purposes is 100. So I'm going to select that one by clicking those legs there, and then that will pop up our Iron Condor on eBay. So this one is giving us 30 cents of credit with 70 cents of risk for a total of 42, almost 43% return on investment that we could make overnight. All right, here's the risk graph. You can see it here. The stock is well within the break-evens, this profit zone that I talked about last time. All right, and if you want to see the probability of profit for any trade, you can see here that it's at 99%, which is what we already saw. And here's the IV spike right here. You can see the IVs come down a little bit into the earnings announcement, but we're expecting this IV to plummet like it has done each time previously. So when that happens, this Iron Condor will make profit. All right, let's see what happened. The next day, I'm going to advance this by hitting plus day, and you will see that in a day, we ended up with a 41% profit. We captured almost all of it. There's a little bit of slippage in there, but for all intents and purposes, this Iron Condor is virtually worthless. In order to avoid any risk whatsoever, you would simply exit the Iron Condor by flipping the buys and the sells around. So in summary, this is what we did. In step one, we went out and found the best IV crush stocks using earnings effects. You go to stocks, stock analysis, hit earnings effects. And then once you're in earnings effects, make sure you go against the S&P 500 and look for the IV best change after for earnings stocks. So click that button there. Also click straddles 1 to 7 days before future earnings. We're just looking for stocks that are going to have earnings in the next 7 days. We're not looking for straddles, but we want the earnings filter. And then once you've done that, hit search. And then you have a beautiful list of one-day IV crush stocks, one-day earnings stocks, in other words. Step 2 is to go into the Condor Finder. Go ahead and place the stock symbol for the stock in question. Select At the Money Iron Condors. Under Wizard Criteria, click Show, and then change the days to option expiration to 1 so that you can get options that expire maybe as soon as tomorrow. Once you've done that, go ahead and click the search button and then enjoy the plethora of Iron Condors that you can play with. Now, one last note, this is an advanced strategy, and if you want to use it, the best thing you can do is go back and historically test at least 4 of them for every stock. And if you get 4 winners or maybe even 3 winners and you make money with 4, then only trade real money. I'm not recommending that you trade real money. I'm recommending that you practice before you do. All right, I hope you enjoyed the video on one-day Iron Condors around earnings. If you like them, practice them, and I will see you next time.